Gadadhara Shiva Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Continue reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto4, Chapter 20, Text 34, Maitreya Vacha.
Maitreya Uvacha.
Iti Vainyasya Rajrishe.
Iti Vainyasya Rajashe.
Pratinandyarthavad vachaha.
Pratinandyarthavad vachaha.
Pujito anugrihit vainam.
Pujito anugrihitvenam.
Gantum chakre achyutomatem.
Gantum chakre achyuto matem.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. The great Saint Maitreya told Vidur, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, amply appreciated the meaningful prayers of Mahārāja Pṛthu. Thus, after being properly worshipped by the king, the Lord blessed him and decided to depart. So we heard how Pṛthu Mahārāja is asking for the benediction that he just wants to hear from the pure devotees. He's asking for this benediction from the Lord. Most important in this verse are the words Prati Nandyarthavat Vacha, which indicate that the Lord appreciated the very meaningful prayers of the king. When a devotee prays to the Lord, it is not to ask for material benefits, but to ask the Lord for his favor. He prays that he may be engaged in the service of the Lord's lotus feet, birth after birth. That's the reason we are always advised, encouraged to recite the prayers of the acharyas, of the pure devotees, because there are some prayers which are not authorized, although they may be very popular, but they don't appear in the scriptures, or they are not sung by the acharyas or pure devotees, and so they may not be able to give rise to the devotion in our heart, because they may be just dealing with, oh God, you do this for me and you do that for me. But when a pure devotee prays, he's asking, my dear Lord, please engage me in your pure devotional service. Because the devotee is asking to be situated in his original platform, his original relationship with Krishna. Lord Chaitanya therefore uses the words Mama Janmani, which means birth after birth. Because the devotee is not even interested in stopping the repetition of birth. The Lord and the devotee appear in this material world birth after birth, but such births are transcendental. So the birth of the devotee, the pure devotee, and the birth of the Lord is not like our birth. We are under the modes of nature, and that's why we want liberation. Oh, I want to get out. Oh, there's too much suffering. But when the pure devotee comes, he is under the protection of the Lord. He is under the protection, shelter of the spiritual energy. The material modes don't act on him. And same, of course, the Lord also. In the 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, the Lord informed Arjuna that both he and Arjuna had undergone many, many births previously, but the Lord remembered everything about them, whereas Arjuna had forgotten. The Lord and his confidential devotees appear many times to fulfill the Lord's mission. But since such births are transcendental, they are not accompanied by the miserable conditions of material birth, and they are therefore called divya, transcendental. So Krishna comes time after time, and he sends his pure devotees also to fulfill the mission. Now, what is the Lord's mission? Does anyone know? What's the mission? Why is Krishna coming? He himself, or his incarnations, or he's sending the pure devotees?
To deliver his devotees.
Yeah. Yeah, he's coming for that. He's coming to show us his pastimes to attract our hearts, to tell us, come back home. Don't be here in the material world. So the birth, the appearance of the Lord and his pure devotees are divya, transcendental. That's the reason the devotee can say, please let me be born birth after birth. You know, people like us, conditioned souls, we may say, oh my God, no way, I don't want to be here birth after birth. I'm going to go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah, but the pure devotee, he's already with the Lord. He's always with the Lord. One must understand the transcendental birth of the Lord and the devotee. The purpose of the Lord's taking birth is to establish devotional service, which is the perfect system of religion. And the purpose of the birth of the devotee is to broadcast the same system of religion or the bhakti cult all over the world. So the devotee and the Lord, they have the same purpose. The devotee is coming to fulfill the desire of the Lord. We are coming because we are like, oh, Krishna, I don't care for your desire. I have these desires and I want you to fulfill them. That's the reason we are here in the material world. But the pure devotee, he's like, my dear Lord, wherever you want me to be, you can put me there. Whatever you want me to do, I will do. He is one with the desire of the Lord. He only desires what the Lord desires him to do. Pṛthu Mahārāja was an incarnation of the power of the Lord to spread the bhakti cult, and the Lord blessed him to remain fixed in his position. Thus, when the king refused to accept any material benediction, the Lord appreciated that refusal very much. You know, the Lord is asking him, you want anything material? And Pṛthu Mahārāja is saying, no, I just want to hear your glories from the pure devotees. Now, if Krishna was in front of us and he asked, what do you want? You know, what would we ask for? Something to think about. So another significant word in this verse is achyuta, which means infallible. Although the Lord appears in this material world, he is never to be considered one of the conditioned souls who are all fallible. So we are fallible, Krishna is infallible, achyuta. If we think that Krishna is same like us, then we are behaving like the prisoner, you know, the unintelligent prisoner who's seeing the king in the prison and thinking, oh, the king is also a prisoner. Instead of taking advantage, oh, the king is here, let me talk to him. Let me see if there's a way he can let me get out of here. So when the Lord appears, he remains in his spiritual position, uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. And therefore, in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord expresses the quality of his appearance as Atma Maya, performed by internal potency. And just by understanding that the appearance of the Lord, the activities of the Lord is divya, is transcendental. One does not need to take birth again in this material world. Krishna himself says it in the Bhagavad Gita. Does anyone know that verse? Well, it's Janma Karma Chame Divya. Chapter 4, text 9. I think it's 9, either 8 or 9. Either one of them. Janma karma chame devyam evam yoveti tatvatah tyakva deham punarjanma naiti mameti so Arjuna. Just by understanding Krishna's birth, Krishna's appearance, Krishna's activities are transcendental, we go back home, back to Godhead. The Lord, being infallible, is not forced by material nature to take birth in this material world. He appears in order to re-establish the perfect order of religious principles and to vanquish the demoniac influence in human society. So this is Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says in chapter 4, text 8, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya cha duskritam dharma samstapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That he comes to re-establish the religious principles, to kill the demoniac, to protect his devotees. You know, we are forced to take birth because we have karma. Krishna has no karma. He's coming out of his own choice. That's why his activities are called pastimes. It's not that he has some karma and so he has to take birth and that's why he's doing some activities. No, no. He's completely independent to act as he chooses. Is that okay?
Yes.
Devarshi Pitar Gandharva
Devarshi Pitra Gandharva
Siddha Charana Panagaha
Siddhacharana Panagaha
Kinara Saraso Martya
Kinara Raso Martya
Bhagabhutani Anikashaha
Kaga Bhutani Anekashaha
Yageshwar Dhiya Rajna
Yajneshwara Dhiyarya Rajna
Vag Vitanjali Bhaktitaha
Vag Vitanjali Bhakti Tatha
Sabhajita Yayo Sarve
Sabhajita Yayu Sarve
Vaikunthānugatastata
Vaikunthānugatastataha.
King Pṛthu worshipped the demigods, the great sages, the inhabitants of Pitralok, the inhabitants of Gandharvalok, and those of Siddhalok, Charanalok, Panagalok, Kinnarlok, Apsaralok, the earthly planets, and the planets of the birds. He also worshipped many other living entities who presented themselves in the sacrificial arena. With folded hands, he worshipped all these, as well as the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the personal associates of the Lord, by offering sweet words and as much wealth as possible. After this function, they all went back to their respective abodes, following in the footsteps of Lord Viṣṇu. In modern so-called scientific society, the idea is very prevalent that there is no life on other planets, but that only on this earth do living entities with intelligence and scientific knowledge exist. Yeah, like sometimes we see the movies, also they promote this thought that only goodness is on this earth, or people with intelligence are here. Even if there's life on other planets, they are like really cruel or something. But it's not like that. In fact, on the higher planets, those living entities are much more advanced than us. The demigods, the heavenly beings are much advanced in their quality of life, in the way they look, the way they speak, everything, the intelligence. The Vedic literatures, however, do not accept this foolish theory. The followers of Vedic wisdom are fully aware of various planets inhabited by varieties of living entities, such as the demigods, the sages, the pitas, the Gandharvas, the Panagas, the Kinnaras, the Charanas, the Siddhas, and the Apsaras. The Vedas give information that in all planets, not only within this material sky, but also in the spiritual sky, there are varieties of living entities. So yeah, the spiritual world it's not that it's empty. The spiritual world is full of variety. The original, in fact, is in the spiritual world, and the material world is just a reflection. The living entities in the spiritual world have spiritual bodies. That's the eternal body of every living entity, the spiritual form. Although all these living entities are of one spiritual nature, in quality, the same as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they have varieties of bodies due to the embodiment of the spirit soul by the 8 material elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, sky, mind, intelligence, and false ego. In the spiritual world, however, there is no such distinction between the body and the embodied. So it's here We are called embodied. Embodied. Why? Because we are inside this material body. But in the spiritual world, we have no material body. We just have our spiritual body. That's it. And here, the 8,400,000 species of life is the different combination and permutation of the three modes of material nature, and also these 8 elements: earth, water, air, fire, ether. It's just different combinations. We have full information from the Vedic literature that in each and every planet, both material and spiritual, they are living entities of varied intelligence. The Earth is one of the planets of the Bhurloka planetary system. There are 6 planetary systems above Bhurloka and 7 planetary systems below it. Therefore, the entire universe is known as Chaturdasha Bhuvana, indicating that it has 14 different planetary systems. Beyond the planetary systems in the material sky, there is another sky, which is known as Paravyoma, or the spiritual sky, where there are spiritual planets. So here, when we look up, we see the sky. So the sky that we are seeing, this is the material sky. But beyond this material sky is the spiritual sky. And in that spiritual sky are the spiritual planets. And over there, what is everyone doing? The inhabitants of those planets engage in varieties of loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which include different rasas or relationships known as Dasya Ras, Sakhya Ras, Vatsalya Ras, Madhurya Ras, and above all, Parakya Ras. So what are we doing here in this material world is we are trying to compete with Krishna, and in the spiritual world, everyone is engaged in loving service to Krishna. Everyone is established in the relationship with Krishna in either of the 5 rasas. And Prabhupada is pointing out that the highest rasa is Parakya Ras. Parakya Ras, because Madhurya has 2. One is the Swakya and Parakya. Swakya is when Krishna has a amorous relationship as husband and wife. But Parakya is when this amorous relationship is as not as husband-wife, but as lovers. This Parakya Ras or paramour love is prevalent in Krishna Lok, where Lord Krishna lives. So it's only in Krishna that there is. It's with the gopis and Krishna. This planet is also called Golok Vrindavan, and although Lord Krishna lives there perpetually, he also expands himself in millions and trillions of forms. So in Parakya Ras, it's like how Radharani, she is supposedly married to Abhimanyu, and the gopis are supposedly married to the other gopas. But they have a loving relationship with Krishna. But now in the material world, if we see in the material sense, you'll say, oh my God, what is this? It's illicit affairs. But that is on the material world. Whatever is the lowest in the material world is the highest in the spiritual world. It's on a platform of complete love. We have lust in our hearts, so we won't be able to even understand it, because our understanding is going to be from lust. And we have to understand that Abhimanyu and all the other Gopas, who are they? They're just shadows of Krishna. They're expansions of Krishna. Yeah. So in one of such forms, he appears on this material planet in a particular place known as Vrindavan Dham, where he displays his original pastimes of Golok Vrindavan Dham in the spiritual sky in order to attract the conditioned souls back home, back to Godhead. So Krishna is always in Golok Vrindavan, but he also expands, he appears in the material world. And that's how he came to Vrindavan 5,000 years ago, to show us his loving pastimes. As we see the preview of a movie, he came to show us the preview of what's happening in Golok Vrindavan to attract our hearts. Give us an open invitation. Come and enjoy the party. Is that okay?
Yes.
Bhagavan api rajarshe
Bhagavan api rajarshe
sopadhyaya sopadhyayasya chachyutaha
sopadya yasya chacyutaha
haran eva mano amushya
haran va mano amushya
swadhama pratyapadyata.
swadhama pratyapatita.
The infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead, having captivated the minds of the king and the priests who were present, returned to his abode in the spiritual sky. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all spiritual, he can descend from the spiritual sky without changing his body. And thus he is known as Achyuta or infallible. So, when the president is entering the prison, he does not have to wear the prisoner's uniform. The laws are not binding to him. He comes in his own dress, whatever he wants, whatever he's wearing. Similarly, Krishna, when he comes to the material world, he does not need a material body. He comes in his own transcendental body. That's why he's called Achyuta, an infallible, unfailing under any circumstance. When a living entity falls down to the material world, however, he has to accept the material body. And therefore, in his material embodiment, he cannot be called Achyuta because he falls down from his real engagement in the service of the Lord. A living entity gets a material body to suffer or try to enjoy in the miserable material conditions of life. So, because it's our desire to enjoy separate from Krishna, we get this material body so that we can live in this material atmosphere. For example, the fish, because they live in the water, they have suitable bodies so that they can live in water. The birds, because they have to fly in the sky, so they have the wings. And similarly, because we are in the material atmosphere, we need to have a body in which we can survive in this material atmosphere. And that is this material body. Therefore, the fallen living entity is called Chyutya, whereas the Lord is called Achyuta. The Lord was attractive for everyone, not only the king, but also the priestly order, who were very much addicted to the performance of Vedic rituals. Because the Lord is all attractive, he's called Krishna, or one who attracts everyone. Krishna, all attractive. He attracts everyone. We are, after all, his parts and parcels. The Lord appeared in the sacrificial arena of Mahārāja Pṛthu as Kshirodakshai Viṣṇu, who is a plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. He is the second incarnation from Karanadakshai Viṣṇu, who is the origin of material creation and who expands as Garbhodakshai Viṣṇu, who then enters into each and every universe. Kshirodakshai Viṣṇu is one of the Purushas who control the material modes of nature. So whenever there is any emergency in the universe, any incarnation has to come in this universe, it's always the Kshirodakshai Viṣṇu. And Kshirodakshai Viṣṇu, if there are sacrifices being performed and he's invited or something, it's this Kshirodakshai Viṣṇu who goes everywhere within the universe. So let's stop here for today. Did anyone want to add anything or comment or anything? Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.